Okay, our next speaker, Senator Dennis Pyle. Dennis is running on his 5th term as a state senator. He's been doing a fantastic job there in our Kansas Senate. So with that, I'll just hand the mic over to Dennis.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everybody. Little explaining, we're late, but when I talked to Ray, I didn't realize that my wife had made a commitment that we were keeping grandkids overnight for one of my daughters celebrating their 5th anniversary. So we had 2 little granddaughters, and we had to wait till they got back. So we finally passed them back to Mom and Dad. And that's a good thing because we didn't have car seats and we wanted to bring them up here anyway. So we've been in a real predicament. But first off, I want to say thank you to all the committee people that are here. Through the years that I've served, you've helped us immensely. Put on events like this. You give opportunities for candidates to come and present their whatever. And you get signs out. You take care of things. And we appreciate that very much. And I'm not going to go without saying thank you to my wife. She's with me today. She's with me most of everything we do. She's my chief campaign assistant. She is not only that, but as I'm in the Senate, I'm a farmer. Most of you know that. And our children are pretty much raised. We have 4 of them married. Another one's going to get married. We have 9 grandchildren. Another one on the way. And we have 2 foster kids that are potentially going to get adopted. Pray for us on that. Pray for them because that's a rough road to hoe. Anyway, I want to thank her because, you know, the phones, the emails, the newspapers, everything that goes on while I'm in Topeka and the rest of the year, I don't have a farm secretary. I don't run a business where I have a secretary like my predecessor, Senator Pugh. His secretary told me when I was running, I walked into their office down in Wamego, and here were all the papers from the district laid out nicely. And she said, that's my job. I watch for letters to the editor. I watch for ads, anything that I have to see, what the editors or what the owners of the papers are publishing, what they're saying about Ed. Jennifer got that job. And unlike people in Washington, D.C., as a Kansas senator, when we leave Topeka, we have no staff, just so you know. Only leadership has staff. So I don't have somebody in Topeka sitting in an office. There's a phone there, and it just tells you basically, call me at home. People say, I can't call you at home. I don't want to bother you at home. That's what state senators and state representatives are for. So, but a big thank you to my wife, because she does all of this, and I don't pay her anything. So, and as you know, farm prices are depressed, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't right now. So, but kind of nice driving over here, seeing some of the harvest going. One of the things that I'm just going to hit on, you know, I do have an opponent, whether you know it or not, and I know that people have a choice when they go to vote, so they'll have to look at the differences. I was asked about the Herald, submit an answer, but they said, what separates you from your opponent? And I want to have so much fun with that, but I'll probably won't, given it's going to be printed in a paper. But, you know, he's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. You know, hey, if you don't know the difference with what's going on nationally, then you better wake up, get off the sleeping meds, because there's a real battle going on. The heart and soul of our country has been. It's the reason I got into this. I've been in it a long time. I asked Jerry Moran, if you think I've been in a long time running for my 5th term, how many of you know how long Jerry Moran's been in office? Nobody? That's interesting. Well, I was just with Jerry the other day, and we had a tour of the Holton Hospital expansion. And so I asked Jerry, I said, by the way, how long have you been there? How long did you serve in the Kansas Senate? 2 terms. And then he got elected to Congress. Any guesses how long he was in the House? 14 years. He's in his 2nd term, his 10th year as United States Senator. So 24 and 8, he's been at this for over 30 years. So I got a ways to go. I don't think I can tread water like he does, but he looked really refreshed and energetic. But Anyway, long story short, we have had a fight in session this last year, as you all know, with the emergency declared and the governor's overreach. My phone rang off the wall. And so one of the main things that will differentiate between me and my opponent is that I'm going to be opposed to Governor Kelly on a lot of issues. He's not. He's not going to stand up to her. And I want to say thank you to Dina. Where did she go? Did she take off? Thank you for your decision. I tried, before, when we were in special session, I tried to put local control at the school level, at the local level, and I was, well, let's just put it, the votes were there to put it with the state board, but the state board made the right decision and gave it to the local school boards, because I'm one that doesn't believe all the schools should have been closed down when they were. I think it should have been a decision that the locals made and did their own little checking and research and made their decisions. But we were effective in the fact that we gave counties the opportunity to do less stringent than what the governor imposed. So, big difference there on how I would have, how I acted and how I voted versus how my opponent would have voted on that issue. But the governor's overreach has definitely been a battle. Not sure she's through. We will see coming up here. But the dynamics of the elections changed with Ruth Ginsburg's death. What was a battle for the U.S. Senate to take enough seats so that they could stop Trump nominees. You know, sometimes God intervenes in a big way, and he did. And now we'll see what happens. We'll see night and day who these Republicans are and whether they're going to back our president on his nomination or not. Because I'm one that believes he needs to make the nomination quick. He needs to get it done before the elections and get it over with. There are a lot of reasons for that. And the best response was President Trump's response that came out this afternoon, or this morning on Meet the Press or wherever he was at. Obama lost his midterm elections, and that's why he didn't have the votes, and that's why McConnell didn't run the votes to approve his nominee at the end of his term. They did not have the votes. It's that simple. We have the votes if Republicans will back our president's nominee. And he won in the midterm elections years ago because he has the control of this U.S. Senate. So it's imperative that we keep that control of the U.S. Senate. This election, and I don't know, there's a battle over a seat here in Kansas, as you've already heard, I'm sure, from Congressman Marshall and his fight with Boyer. I serve with her. I know her. She's every bit as left-wing as our governor, our New York governor. How many of you knew she was from New York when she was running? Very, very few people. Poor messaging, and unfortunately we have that to deal with now. I challenged some folks, Republicans in Wamego here a while back, that we see a lot going on in our country. We see a lot of things happening, and I guess I would I challenge them to ask themselves, do you know what you believe? Do you know what you believe? Do you know why you differ with the actions of these people out here that are causing riots, that are attacking our law enforcement, that are all that's going on? You've seen it in the media. But do you know what you believe? And the other question I asked them is, do you know what you don't believe? Because it's important. You know, we go into debate on the floor of the Senate or in a campaign, and you have to study both sides to really be an effective debater. And it's time for us to wake up and know not only what we believe, but why we don't believe what they believe. The Marxist teachings that are being propagated in our country today have been pushed and pushed for the last 50 years. There's a reason we're where we're at today, folks. There's a book, and I told them about it. It's called 10 Books That Screwed Up the World, and 5 more that didn't help. And it's a hardback. You got to pay for it. But it talks about what Nietzsche believed. It talks about Mein Kampf, Hitler's book. Tells you what he believed. There's others in there. There's 10 of them. Marx's. Anyway, if you want to know what these people believe that are trying to take power in our country and have been working to do it for a long time and have been very, very successful, if you look at what they've done with our courts. So it's time. We need to know our history. We need to know where we've come from, where we're going. We need to know the other side's beliefs so that we can effectively debate them and we can see when they put a message out there what their message is. I can get real passionate about babies. I had 6 girls, and I was there for every one of them. And there's no way that you would ever be able to terminate one of them little babies in my life's womb without me doing something awful to you. And if you think you're going to terminate them after they're born, and a man just threw a little 2-year-old girl out of a car on the interstate yesterday. He was 30 years old. He threw her out the window, killed her. They don't know what they believe. That's the problem. They have no grounding. So the question is, who taught them what they don't believe or believe? And who taught us what we believe and don't believe? Because it's time we examined it. And we need to start basing what we're learning and what we're reading and studying it. Because, folks, it's more important today than it's ever been to elect freedom-loving, constitutional-minded, God-loving people to every level of elected office. Every level. Because there is definitely a movement in this country like we've never seen before. And I will just share with you, it was a hard decision to run again because I've got a family. I've got 9 grandkids. And I want to do a little bit of traveling and do some things. But I did talk to all 3 of my representatives, who are, by the way, now Republican. When I first ran, that was not the case. All 3 of them were Democrats. If you remember Bruce Larkin, Jerry Henry, and Galen Wyland, you know what I'm talking about. And we have changed Northeast Kansas. Not just me, it's you. People have started to move Republican up here. We have 3 Republican representatives in this district. 4th, if you count to my west in Marshall County. That's an open seat this year. It's contested, so we'll see if it, but I'm hoping it stays Republican. So keep up the good work. Join us in our fight. We didn't raise any money for a couple of years for the campaign because we were running for Congress 2 years ago. But stay in the battle. Hold your head up. Victory's ours. We're going to win this election. Our president's going to win this election. I really believe that. I really believe President Trump is going to lead us for another 4 years, and I'm praying that he has the U.S. Senate's backing so that he has the power. Because I know Clarence Thomas is getting older, and he too probably wants to get off the court and knows he'll be replaced. So, you know, it could very easily go 6-3 and then go back 5-4, and it could go the other way. So there's a lot of work and a lot is always is. And you know, John Quincy Adams said it best: duty is ours, results are God's. We've got to, yeah, you know, it's like old football. We always had to push them stinking pads. We always wondered what it was for. Well, they got you ready to push the guys on the line. So stay in there. Thank you. Are we taking any questions, or are we? I don't know your time.
Questions for Senator Pyle?
Senator, I'm not sure you're aware of this or have been privy to this conversation yet, but recently the governor stood up in a meeting with the Kansas Sheriff's Association's executive director and board and explained to them that all law enforcement in Kansas is biased and racial, and that she's going to do something about that. We're going to be
Well, this is the first time I've heard of it, but I will tell you this, it doesn't surprise me. You know, the governor's overreach.
The last time I checked, I never met her, so.
She'll be put in check when we get back in session, which is one of the questions I would like to ask you, that it will deal with this. If you're aware of the Kansas Constitution, we can't get the legislature back in session without 2/3 of us petitioning to go in, or the governor called us in, and she's not going to do that. And there are a lot of us who want to see, I'm on the Kansas Emergency Management Special Committee to examine the Emergency Management Act. So one of the things I want to see, I'd like to know if you support this or not, but I would like to see that when there's an emergency declaration, that we change that restriction so that the legislature can convene and not be so difficult to get us back into session. Because to me, if she's going to do something such as this, or extend another emergency where she shuts down businesses for 3 weeks, we need to, within a week's time, be able to, we're calling us back into session so that we can deal with these issues, and your elected officials are all there. That was one of the frustrations I know Randy shared with me, Representative Garber, was that we were not there after we left, and people said, do something, do something. It's very difficult to do something when you're not in session and you can't introduce legislation and you can't get votes to change things. When we went back to special session and made those changes, the governor was happy with the changes. I didn't think it went far enough, voted against it. But yeah, we'll be dealing with that issue, I'm sure, come January, if we don't get a chance to deal with it sooner. The best thing to do would be get us back in there, even for just a few days, to deal with this kind of stuff. Because we expected it, you know. When they put the deadline in there, September 15th, there were a lot of us that opposed that. And by the way, the House of Representatives, many of you don't know this, but they voted for a resolution before we left in March to give her full power until next session. It passed unanimously on a Friday afternoon. Yeah, any wonder? I got a call that weekend on a Sunday night saying, did you see what the House passed? I said, I haven't read it. So I went and read it. And Monday morning, the revisor already had 3 amendments drafted to that resolution. One was that she put the governor, whoever that would be, under emergency declaration, cannot impede or affect or any way restrain the sales or the action of ammunition, firearms, etc., Second Amendment stuff. The second one was to put it into local control, try to make some of that. And anyway, all of those amendments, the majority leader took one of them, that all was discussed in leadership and ran through, and in all 3 of them restricted her. And then you saw when Governor closed down the churches, what she did. It went to court. It was going to court. And then she backed up. And so I can't remember all the details as good as I'd like to, but I do know that we fixed it to some degree. I wanted the LCC in charge, which is the legislative leaders, and there were other leaders down there that wanted the Finance Council in charge, and they won out. The Finance Council is in charge, but you need to understand the difference. The Finance Council is chaired by the governor, and she could delay calling that meeting to the hour, whatever that is. I think she has a couple weeks to do it. But with the LCC, it would have been the legislative leadership that would have been able to call a meeting right now and interfere and stop the emergency declaration or whatever she's doing. Wherever you're at on COVID, there's just so many opinions on how we should be dealing with that right now. So it's hard as a senator to, some people think we should all be still wearing masks. In a Republican event like this, I can tell you, most of them, it's like this, most people are not wearing a mask. But when I walk into committee meetings in Topeka, most people are wearing a mask. So there's just a difference in where you're at. Plus the Capitol is under a mask order mandate with the governor. So to answer your question, we certainly don't agree with the governor. I don't. So
Okay, on a situation like that, can we as the public I mean, I understand you are our leader, and there's so much you can do, but we as a public, can we get involved in that in letters and emails, and, I mean, do they do any good for us as a Republican group or whatever to stymie things like this?
I think it does good. I do. I would, when I was called by one of my representatives, and he said, I'm telling people there's nothing we can do. And I said, no, don't tell them that. Tell them to call the governor's office. Contact the governor's office. Give them the chief of staff's number. Give them the chief of staff's email so that you can tell them and let them know there's people out here that don't agree. But be polite, be civil. They're not going to, do it in a way that they will hopefully reach out to you. I was trying to solve a lot of problems. I had people with unemployment, more so towards the southeast part of my district. I have a lot of unemployment issues, and I just got an email last week from Bush Mize with some of the things that went on. People that were not even unemployed, someone had filed a claim for unemployment in their name. And yet they had sent the department communication saying this is not right. And we've got a lot of problems in the Department of Labor that need to be worked out. But yes, by all means, contact them. And if you need their contact information, I'm glad to share the chief's email. He probably won't like it, but put that out there.
I just feel our law enforcement has been hung out there dry by themselves. I mean, and it's going to take the public, the people, to stand up, and say enough is enough. And if we don't do that, I don't know what's going to happen, because it's going to come in our area here. We are fortunate, very fortunate, and it's a beautiful place to live. And our law enforcement has been great. And I don't want to see it spill out into our community, our small community. We don't want to see it out there.
I will remind you, since we're talking about some of this stuff, that the governor only won. She won with 48% of the vote. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. They don't like to be reminded of that, by the way. But she did not win with a majority of the Kansas people. She won the most votes in that three-way or four-way race, but she did not receive 50% plus one. So she's going to get beat in 2 years. I believe that. And but we've got a lot of work to do in the next 2 years, and we've got to get through this COVID crisis and get this all straightened out. Kathy?
What you said is being taught. I just listened to something the other day from an organization called Heritage Action here in Washington, D.C. And they said that this training has been going on in the federal offices and the state offices for years. And President Trump just found out about it and says that has to stop now. So if it's being continued, he wants to hear it, and it needs to stop. And I have more information on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I will add, I don't know whether any of you have seen the articles. I got an audit, which I have worked for a long time to get an audit about dues and fees and lobbying costs that you, the taxpayer, are funding. And I could not get answers. I would send out open records requests to municipalities, governmental entities, and very few would respond. And so we got an audit approved a year or so ago. It's been in the works. They came out the other day with the results and released it to the post-audit committee. Only 22.5% of governmental entities responded to post-audit. Now these are the folks that work for the legislature. It's called the legislative post-audit. They have authority to come in and examine government books. And when they send you a request for information and data, you should respond. Only 22.5% of the governmental entities that were asked responded. So the swamp's deep, and it's deep in Kansas.
Is there any consequence to not responding?
No.
So what's the point of
That's
responding?
part of the thing we're looking at. I had representative called me tonight, he goes, I got 4 ideas for legislation because of your audit. And I said, well, I've got some myself. Because we don't have transparency. That's one. We don't have any consequences to not complying. We don't have, I can go on, but there are several things. Ohio and Louisiana just followed. Ohio has basically what they call checkbook online, where the governmental entities have to post what they're writing their checks for and what their receipts are, and you can see it all. It'd be easy for audit to go in and pull it, wouldn't it? Only one state in the union. Louisiana passed something. I haven't had a chance to look at theirs, but they said it's going to take 3 years to implement it.
Oh, right.
But I want to see what their legislation is, because that will definitely be some legislation that I'm working, because I want to see more transparency. And I will just tell you this. This will be the first time I've publicly talked about this, but I'm on the KEMA, the Emergency Management Act Special Committee. And I asked a question in there, it's probably been 3 weeks ago. And because if you read in the papers, you saw where the Adjutant General came in and he basically was questioned because he showed us in a tour that they had received garbage bags with holes in the shoulders, holes up here, and those were being promoted as gowns. Okay? They were just sitting on them. They also had received mini masks that were supposed to qualify for COVID that they can't use. They'll qualify for surgical masks, but they won't qualify for being distributed as PPE for COVID. So the question was asked, we would like to see a list of all the products that you have received and or distributed. We'd like to see a list of all those entities that have requested those products and the amounts they've received and the amounts they've sent back. So we haven't gotten a response. So a week ago, I get an email from the legislative staffer on the committee and said they don't want to comply with the question. So, and these emails can be public because they're correspondence, but so I replied back. Jennifer knows my frustrations with this. So I replied back. I said, because you got the researcher, number one, telling you there's been no correspondence, but they won't. So I've got to verify, number one, that that's true. So I asked the question. I said, I need to see all correspondence between the research staff and the Adjutant General's office. And I got that. And the Adjutant General office, long story short of the story is, we've been told by the governor to not respond to these questions. And I can prove that. What would you do? And then you wonder why legislators work so hard and seemingly tread water. It's getting deep. And and we all saw what happened to President Trump. 4 years. As if to wonder he got anything done. I mean, really, I look at how deep it is and how big government has become. And it's time for the pendulum to swing the other way. It's time that we get back our government and that we start saying enough is enough and we start fixing some things. And number one, we need transparency and we need it desperately. And I need full transparency. We don't need, and I know, that's going to affect schools. Oh, Pyle, you're against schools. No, I'm not. But I want to see the checkbook. I want to see the county. I want to see the township. I don't care what government entity you are, whether the Adjutant General, who you are. If there's a security reason, fine. We'll figure that out. But let's see it. Let's see where that money's going. Because you know what? The reporter asked me when that audit broke, if I was, how did he say that? Wanted to know how I felt about the fact that there wasn't any more compliance. And I said, well, maybe it just brings to the point that maybe we need to ask what the benefits are to being members of those associations. How many travel, how many trips, how many, what else are taxpayers paying for besides the dues and the membership fees and paying for, I have 20-some school districts in my district, and not a one of them that I'm aware of pays for a direct lobbyist. But I can show you the 5 counties where most of the direct lobbyists that set in the education committee come from. And some of them are getting paid $40,000, $50,000 for a session to come up there and advocate for their specific school district. Now tell me that's balanced with my districts. You know, they come to me or Randy or Francis or Dr. Epley and say, here's what we need. And we walk in and talk to our appropriations people, and they're getting bombarded by 50 lobbyists, plus the legislators from those 5 counties. So it's a battle. I always talk about the rural-urban issues, and that's one of them. And that's one that I see definitely in the committees I'm in, because I can see them sitting right there in the gallery advocating, and they're in Ways and Means. And you're paying for it. It's taxpayer-funded lobbying. It's one of the #1 issues that I've worked against for 4 years. And somebody asked me last year if I was going to put a sign on my door that said no taxpayer lobbying allowed. Haven't quite gotten that far, but got to keep the communication open with everybody. But at the same time, it'd be nice to have 90% compliance with that audit request, so that we could actually see how many dollars were being spent. And anyway, any other questions real quick?
Would you want to hit on Medicaid expansion?
Well, I'm not going to support it if that's what you want, and I can tell you why. Okay? Number one, when it started out, it was 100% the federal government's going to cover it. Okay? And my opponent's going to support it. He's already said that in his press release. And the governor wants it. So if the federal government already has dropped it twice to a 90-10 match, we have no assurance that that's going to stay there. Okay? So the state, once you adopt that policy, you're kind of on the line for whatever. If they go 50-50, you're going to have to come up with all that money. The other couple questions I asked, number one, is where's that 10% match coming from? It's got to come from somewhere. I mean, you're going to pull down 90% of federal dollars, but that's obligated, okay? So you've got to come up with a 10% match as the state. Where are you going to get it? Are you going to raise taxes? Nobody seems to want to answer that question. And if so, which taxes? Or, instead of raising taxes, you're going to take it out of current revenue? Then where are you going to take it from? You're going to take it from the schools? You're going to take it from the disability groups? Because those are the 2 biggest. Where are you going to get it? It's 10%. It's quite a sum of money. Where are you going to get the money? And no one will answer those questions for me. No one will say, we're going to raise sales tax and we're going to dedicate it to Medicaid expansion. And if you can get my opponent to say where he's going to get the money, I'd like to hear him say it. Because he won't answer that. He'll just say he's going to support Medicaid expansion. More government.
Raise taxes.
Is that what you want to do?
No, that's the only answer they have.
Yeah.
Raise taxes, because we don't have enough taxes out here yet.
Yeah. And you know where I'm at. Look, I have always told people when I ran, I'm pro-life. Okay? And if you didn't get to see what happened and what I was able to do on the pro-life amendment last year, I will tell you, I was getting beat up by pro-life groups. Because, yes, this is how quickly they can turn on you. All right? And you know why? Okay, I got to back up and give you some history. Do you remember the marriage amendment? 2005, I campaigned in 2004 when I was first elected to the state senate that I would help pass a marriage amendment. And we pulled teeth to get a marriage amendment to pass the Senate and the House with 2/3 vote, which it has to have to go to the people. Okay? But to do so, we had to put it on an April ballot. I had 2 pro-life colleagues that were on the Democrat side of the aisle, and they would absolutely not join, and we needed them to get to 27. They would not vote for anything other than an April ballot. If you put it on the August primary or the November election, no. Take the politics out of it, put it before the people, and see if it'll pass. And that's what we did. But more importantly than just the April ballot, the language has to say a special election. I chaired elections, know a little bit about elections, but it has to say special election. If it doesn't, it goes to Republicans and to Democrats. What are you going to do with all the independents and reforms and the other parties that are out there on the ticket? They either got to come in and join your party or they can't vote on that issue. It has to say special election language. So, I'm in committee. I can't remember what committee that was. The Life Amendment came through our committee, and I spoke up. This is where I got in trouble. All right, I'm talking too much today. Anyway, but the Life Amendment came in, we had our hearings, and I said, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. You know, I'm going to vote for this, but this is not going to stand up. It won't hold constitutional muster because it doesn't have special election language in it. I walked out of that committee room and I was met right away by the Catholic Coalition, KFL, you know the groups, Ray, you know them. Senator, are you trying to defeat our bill? No, I'm trying to help it. I want to help it pass. The leadership wasn't going to let anybody get any credit on this bill, okay? And their response was, our lawyers have vetted this. This is the language it has to be. Fine, I'll vote for it. We'll kick it out of committee. Gets to the Senate floor. Go read what National Right to Life had to say about Dennis Pyle's amendment on the floor of the Senate. Now, if I sat back and watched as Senator Miller mutilated our carrier of the bill with the very arguments that I'm saying here needed to be done. And they were losing. Senator Rucker was carrying the bill. And I went up to Rucker and I said, you see what I mean? He goes, I do. I'll talk to Susan, President of the Senate. I said, I'll get the amendment drafted. And my amendment went on a voice vote. Because that allows everyone in the state of Kansas that's registered to vote on the amendment. Okay? They were afraid we would get into an April date, which, by the way, I think if we would have got to put it on the ballot if we'd have gone with a different date. But there were people that wanted it on the primary. But no, I went from being a bad guy to being a good guy. It's that's how it is in this arena. And people can take what you say on camera, use it against you, take a clip, put your words out there, use it against you. We've got to get wise. And we've got to listen to what's being said and how it's being said. But I will stop with this. Just remember, President Trump had the perfect argument today. Obama lost his midterm elections and lost the power in the Senate, and he did not have the votes to get his conferee confirmed. We do. We won the midterms 2 years ago. We empowered our president to do what we want him to do, and that is to appoint good, solid, conservative, freedom-loving, constitutional-minded judges. And I need your help in this campaign. Help me to go back to Topeka to do what I begrudgingly sometimes have to do. But I will promise I still am pro-life, I'm pro-gun, and I'm not going to raise your taxes. Now, that's getting harder to do. I will tell you this real quick, Ray. Because not only are the Democrats, but the Republicans are getting really good at bundling. And throwing a tax increase in with a tax cut and calling it a tax cut. And you get in trouble because people like me, you know, I've been there long enough, I know how to divide a bill if I get the opportunity, so that I can at least vote on both parts. But it's getting worse, and it needs to stop. Anyway, thank you all. We need your prayers, we need your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I tell you what, you see why it is so important to have good leadership in our state house. And we want to thank Senator Pyle for his years of service, and we want to elect him again for another term. Absolutely.